Hello and welcome to the news on NTA International at this hour. I'm Dennis Adegunloye. We'll begin with the headlines. President Muhammadu Buhari commends youths in Jigawa State for peaceful conduct in recent NSAS protests. More appeals by concerned Nigerians to youths to embrace peace as federal government is addressing requests. Plus, United Nations marks 75th anniversary as world observes Information Development Day. And multinational joint task force, Lake Chad Basin Commission and United Nations Development Programme move to prevent violent extremism in Lake Chad Basin. And we'll begin in Guinea, where President Alpha Condé has been announced winner of the October 18th election with 59.5% of the vote, according to a full preliminary tally from the Election Commission on Saturday. The victory, which requires confirmation by the Constitutional Court, gives a third term in office to the 82-year-old Condé, after a bitterly fought election in which the opposition said he had no right to participate. Condé says a constitutional referendum in March reset his two-term limit, but opponents say he is breaking the law by holding onto power. Results were announced in batches in recent days and already showed Condé with an unassailable lead, sparking street protests in opposition strongholds in which at least 17 people died. Opposition candidate Selou Dalien Diallo, Condé's nearest rival with 33.5% of the votes, said he has evidence of fraud and plans to file a complaint with the Constitutional Court. The United Nations is celebrating the 75th anniversary of its establishment in a very different world compared to when it was created back 75 years ago. Adebola Brooklyn Sunday takes a look at how the organization has grown over the years and the challenges it is now facing going forward.
It was June 1945 in San Francisco, California, that the UN Charter was signed to prevent the atrocities of the World War II. Over the years, the UN has expanded its work in humanitarian operations. The organization feeds about 87 million people in 83 countries. It has also vaccinated half of the world's children and has nearly 100,000 peacekeepers deployed in several countries in its efforts to curb conflict in almost every corner of the globe. The organization, however, said many of the founding powers like Britain, China, Russia, and the United States are moving further away from one of its core principles, multilateralism, which smaller countries are embracing.
The context in which we are working serves to remind us on the necessity of the multilateral system and inspires us all to make use of the UN Charter to address our collective challenges.
Mr. President, I will conclude by reaffirming Nigeria's commitment to promoting international peace and security and sustainable development, as well as strengthening partnerships and cooperation with international and regional organizations.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I want to thank the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for the statement just made.
This year's anniversary is coming at a time of great disruption for the world, compounded by an unprecedented global health crisis due to COVID-19 pandemic with severe economic and social impacts.
On United Nations Day, I reinforce my appeal for a global ceasefire so we can devote all our energies to fighting COVID-19.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the founding mission is more critical than ever to promote human dignity and rights, respect international law, and save humanity from war.
And let us act together now to defeat the pandemic, to prevent climate catastrophe, uphold the equality of women and men, and pave the way for a safer, healthier, more just and sustainable world.
With Palestine and the Vatican City non-members of the 193-member organization, the UN said the situation the world found itself is a reminder that times of struggle can become an opportunity for positive change and transformation. Adebola, Brooks Lane Sunday, NTA News.
I'm now being joined in the studio by Professor Sadiq Abba, a political economist and development expert who was the democratic governance expert for the UN for 5 years and also the head of Department's Political Science and International Relations University of Abuja to examine the impact of the world body United Nations as it marks its 75th anniversary. Prof, you're welcome to NTA International Studios.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Nigeria.
All right, this year, 2020, marks the 75th anniversary of the United Nations and its founding charter. Do you think the establishment of the organization has been justified?
Yeah, certainly. If you look at the historical context under which the UN, United Nations organization, as then the UN came on board, the various global challenges, the universal crisis and conflicts, human catastrophe, and the various wars that were raging across the globe as at then. I think humanity has every cause to look at themselves and commend themselves for bringing such a very important global platform as the UN is today. So the justification of the existence and presence of UN could be seen from the various achievements and records that were recorded by the various activities undertaken by the United Nations in almost all over its 193 member countries. So it goes without saying that at least one of the most successful thing that was done, one of the most successful achievement that was recorded by mankind in the last century was the creation of the United Nations as it is today.
All right. Now, observing United Nations Day provides an opportunity to reaffirm collective commitment to the ideals of the UN. To what extent do you think they have impacted the global community?
You see, among the pundits that were holding contrary views about the success and achievements of UN, and despite all the evidences and the reasons that are being advanced by them, one clear thing remains, and that is that the UN as a body has achieved tremendous the successes as far as its 75 years history is concerned. If you look at the peacekeeping operations, the World Health Organizations, the UNICEF, the developmental projects and platforms that were created to uplift mankind from the level of less developed to a high level of more development, the peacekeeping operations that the United Nations undertook in various countries of the world. These are evidences in themselves that the UN has not only come to stay for mankind, but mankind must equally ensure that the UN keeps on staying for the sustainability of mankind.
Absolutely. Now, the theme for UN Day 2020 is the future we want, the UN we need, reaffirming the collective commitment to multilateralism. What's your take on the theme in relation to world peace and security?
You see, as it is today, I think if you go back into history, the UN is a product, is a baby of multilateralism. And even though as then it operated in very severe environmental conditions of political conditions of bipolarity, now we are having unilateralism that is trying to impose itself on global stage. But despite this unfortunate development or negative development, the theme of the UN today signifies only one thing. And even for those who have negative views about the existence of UN, we knew it's not about the UN. For UN to continue performing the role for which both humanity and his history placed on his soldiers, it must first and foremost transit from mere speeches in the General Assembly into an enforcement organization that can enforce its resolutions and now be able to at least hold member nations to those resolutions, either implementing them or not implementing them. So what we are advocating now in this 21st century is for UN to move from mere culture of speech-making utterances at the General Assembly to an institution, to an organization, to a platform whereby humanity will have fraternity, will have brotherhood, and will have sense of belonging, whereby an injury to one is an injury to all. So enforceability is the only missing link and missing gap in the activities of UN. And I hope and pray this UN under Guterres will now chart a new course, because in every century, leaders, global leaders, and UN in particular, must chart a new course for mankind in order to realize itself and actualize itself.
We certainly need that. All right, Prof. Sadiq Abba, many thanks for sharing your thoughts with us as the UN marks 75 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You are welcome.
All right, on to other news now, and communications experts are calling for holistic information management technology among nations and more developmental reportage on Nigeria's media waves as countries across the globe mark the World Development Information Day 2020. In this special report, Oluseyi Adeagbo seeks to ascertain the essence of the World Development Information Day to Nigeria and the world.
Development and growth to any society brings joy, but just like two sides to a coin, it is not devoid of challenges. Typically, information technology is one of the features of the digital age, where access to events is not only on prime time, but also easy. But there is a Herculean task, the spread of fake news and unreal information, which no doubt threatens peaceful coexistence. This, among others, explains why the General Assembly in 1972 established World Development Information Day to create awareness on development problems and the need to strengthen international cooperation to solving them.
So we have to be able to use it in poverty eradication. We have to be able to use it in creating more opportunities for education and all of that. So these are some of the areas that we still have not been able to use that information properly, even though if you compare what is happening today with what was happening in the past, you would see that there's tremendous development.
For this veteran journalist, Ben Chameng, a director training of the Voice of Nigeria, improving the dissemination of information and the mobilization of public opinion, particularly among youths, will help promote efforts in the sphere of cooperation for development.
For us in the media world, it is nice that we also imbibe what is called developmental journalism. It's not every time that you look for the odd news, bad news. So as the world is marking this day, we should, as journalists too, play our own role very well.
World Development Information Day is an international celebration set for every 24th day of October, and this year's theme is Information and Communications Technologies, New Solutions to Development Challenges. In Abuja, Oluseyi Adeagbo, NTA News.
Let's turn our attention to security matters now, and the Multinational Joint Task Force and the Lake Chad Basin Commission, in collaboration with the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, have organized a workshop to articulate an inclusive regional communication strategy to prevent violent extremism in the Lake Chad Basin. A statement by the Chief Military Public Information of the Joint Task Force, N'Djamena Chad, Colonel Mohammed Dole, says the event is aimed at reinforcing information and communication lines of operation to counter and replace the extremist ideology propagated by Boko Haram and armed groups with a constructive alternative narrative capable of discouraging extremism, restoring confidence, and a secure future. Colonel Dole notes that the program is also meant to consult technical experts and representatives from the affected areas of the Multinational Joint Task Force military influence to discourage sympathy and support for terrorists and deter Boko Haram and ISWAP from radicalizing and recruiting people, particularly across troop-contributing countries and the Lake Chad Basin in general. The Nigerians in Diaspora Monitoring Group in Ohio, United States, has called on the United Nations, United States, United Kingdom and other nations to withdraw their statements that appeared to taunt the Nigerian government over the Lekki tollgate shooting. In a statement, the group said it is logical for the international community to apologize to President Muhammadu Buhari's led government, considering the overwhelming evidence now rubbishing supposed massacre in Lagos State. Like the rest of the world, it admitted that it reacted with disgust over the alleged shooting of peaceful NSAS protesters by the Nigerian army. However, it said the sentiment changed after according to the group, the peddlers of the fake news carefully planned, selected, manipulated and curated the photographs and videos that were used to mislead key decision makers across the globe. While mourning the lives lost in the violence that erupted afterwards, the group said all actors in the ugly saga must be brought to book. It also said the country has been hapless victim of fake news and therefore the need for nations to withdraw their earlier statements. You're watching the news on NTA International. Do stay with us. We'll be right back after this messages.
Demands of #EndSARS movement. Immediate release of all arrested protesters. Justice for all deceased victims of police brutality and appropriate compensation for their families. Setting up an independent body to oversee the investigation and prosecution of all reports of police misconduct within 10 days. In line with the new Police Act, psychological evaluation and retraining to be confirmed by an independent body of all disbanded SARS officers before they can be redeployed. Increase police salary so that they are adequately compensated for protecting the lives and property of citizens. Federal government's response. On 11th October 2020, the Inspector General of Police dissolved the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, across the 36 states police commands and the Federal Capital Territory. On October 12th, President Muhammadu Buhari addressed the nation, stating the disbanding of SARS is only the first step in our commitment to extensive police reforms. On 13th October 2020, the Inspector General of Police ordered all defunct SARS personnel to report at Force Headquarters, Abuja, for debriefing as well as psychological and medical examination. On 13th October 2020, the Presidential Panel on the Reform of SARS accepted the 5-point demand of the #EndSARS protesters. On 15th October 2020, the National Economic Council, NEC, directed the immediate establishment of state-based judicial panels of inquiry across the country to receive and investigate complaints of police brutality, related extrajudicial killings with a view to delivering justice for all victims of the dissolved SARS and other police units. State governors should immediately establish state-based special security and human rights committees to be chaired by governors in their state and to supervise the newly formed police tactical units and all other security agencies located in the state. This will ensure the protection of citizens' human rights. Members will also include representatives of youth and civil society as well as head of police tactical units in each of the states.
Thanks for remaining with the NTA International. Now, Poland's president tests positive for coronavirus as Astra receives clearance by US regulators to resume vaccine trial. Details of this and others on the global COVID-19 updates with Justin Bem-Unyi.
Poland's President Andrzej Duda has tested positive for COVID-19. His spokesperson tweeted that the conservative leader received the result after a test was conducted on him on Friday. However, the tweet indicates the president feels well and will be in quarantine. Mr. Duda's diagnosis follows a sharp increase in the confirmed cases of COVID-19 and related deaths in the country. In the meantime, the United States Food and Drug Agency, FDA, has permitted AstraZeneca as well as Johnson & Johnson to resume late-stage trials on a potential coronavirus vaccine testing in the U.S. AstraZeneca's trial was halted in the U.S. on September 6 after a participant in the UK trial developed a serious neurological illness. Reports have it that earlier this week the FDA had completed its review and the trial could resume as early as next week. Meanwhile, the latest coronavirus surge is raging across the American heartland, most acutely in the Midwest and Mountain West. This harrowing third surge, which led to a U.S. single-day record of more than 85,000 new cases Friday, is happening less than 2 weeks from Election Day, which will mark the end of a campaign dominated by the pandemic and President Trump's much criticized response to it. As of Friday evening, 15 states have added more cases in the past week than in any other 7-day stretch of the pandemic. Now let's have a look at the global numbers of confirmed coronavirus cases as indicated on the Worldometer dashboard as at 6 p.m. The records showed 42,612,751 cases, out of which 1,511,145 are deaths and 31,501,547 are recoveries. While the African Center for Disease Control dashboard indicated 1,696,285 cases of coronavirus with 40,922 deaths and 1,394,094 recoveries. Thank you for your time. My name is Justin Bemunyi.
Thank you, Justin. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has commended youths in Jigawa State for the peaceful nature in which they conducted themselves in the recent NSAS protests in parts of the country. This was in a special message presented by the Minister of Water Resources, Suleiman Adamu, to Jigawa State Governor. Muhammad Musa Askira has details.
In Jigawa State had during the NSAS protest organized a peaceful and orderly march past in support of President Muhammadu Buhari's decision to disband the Special Anti-Robbery Squad known as SARS in response to the demands advanced by the youth demonstrators in the country. This, the minister stated, is the reason President Muhammadu Buhari sent him to thank the youth and the government of Jigawa State for the maturity exhibited during the protest.
It is of great concern to everybody, to every responsible government, and especially our own, that this kind of things should happen. Hoodlums and enemies of the country hijacked what was meant to be a peaceful protest, which had the listening ears of the government, and in so doing began to infringe on the rights of other peace-loving citizens of Nigeria.
Governor Muhammadu Badru Abubakar, who expressed gratitude to President Muhammadu Buhari, stated that Buhari administration has moved Nigeria to a high level that the country never thought to attain in the span of just 5 years. The governor added that Jigawa State owes the president endless appreciation for what he is doing in the state and the country in general.
It's always a good feeling for father to say thank you to his sons and daughters. Otherwise we could have said, Baba have done enough for us that doesn't warrant any thank you coming from him. We would rather go and say thank you to Baba for all what he has been doing to Jigawa State and the country in general.
He also admonished the youth to eschew from creation and spread of fake news, which he attributed to the cause of modern violence. The minister was also at the palaces of emirs of Hadejia and Dutse for the same thank you message and sympathy over the recent flood that affected the state. From Dutse, Muhammad Musa Askira, NTA News.
The All Progressives Congress has expressed sadness over the tragedy that happened in parts of the country a few days ago and appealed to Nigerians to halt the continued activities of those disguising themselves as NSAS protesters. The party also called on the youth to extricate themselves from the activities of the criminal elements perpetrating violence and attacking innocent Nigerians. The ruling party says it is committed to the ideals of democracy and recognizes the inalienable rights of the citizens to demand for changes in conditions which trample on their liberties, freedoms and associations, freedom of speech and well-being through peaceful means and rule of law, acknowledging the peaceful commencement of the protest until it became violent, destructive and disorderly as hoodlums took over. The APC condoles with the families of Nigerians who lost their loved ones and prays that Almighty God will grant them the fortitude to bear the loss and replenish all those whose properties have been destroyed. The party commended President Muhammadu Buhari, who quickly responded and disbanded the Special Anti-Robbery Squad of the Nigeria Police, SARS, as demanded by the protesting youths, including the review of salaries of the Nigeria Police as announced by Mr. President. It called on Nigerians to embrace peace and work together irrespective of political, religious and ethnic differences to build sanity, strengthen peace and unity of the nation to ensure the corporate existence of the country Nigeria. Meanwhile, the youth wing of the Nigeria InterReligious Council is calling on the NSAS protesters to back down and give peace and dialogue a chance. Timothy Yusuf reports that the Muslim and Christian youths of Nigeria under the banner of the council are charged with the responsibility of promoting peaceful coexistence. All right, we'll bring you that report in our subsequent bulletins. Meanwhile, the Rivers State government has outlawed the indigenous peoples of Biafra, IPOB, from existing and operating in the state in line with the prescription of the federal government. This is sequel to the unending insurrection activities of the group in the state. All right, on to other news. Engineers must adhere strictly to the rules of engagement in the profession as they will now be held accountable for any failure in their jobs. This was at the 2020 Engineer Charles Mbanefo's distinguished lecture in Abuja. Adebola Brooksland Sunday reports.
Technological advancement, analysts say, serves as a major key to national development, while proper engineering knowledge plays a major role in its attainment. This lecture is a convergence of professionals who are always looking for ways to make everyday life better for everyone. As a result of failures in some projects, they have been urged to emulate engineers like Charles Mbanefo, who has demonstrated excellence in jobs execution. Engineer Charles Mbanefo wants them to be above board, especially with the new rules guiding the profession, and at the same time relate with professionals in other fields for broader knowledge.
The course I took in law almost 50 years ago was still relevant, and we deal with law-related matters.
Water Resources Minister on his part appealed for public awareness creation on any burning issue in the country.
In this very unnecessary round call about the water resources bill, we are professionals, even though I'm holding a political office, but I see myself as a professional first.
Key players emphasize more on the need for members to be more careful, diligent and creative.
Engineers and non-engineers who are into contracts must go through the Procurement Act of 2007 to ensure that things are done in the right perspective.
If, because of poor design, for instance, an accident happens, somebody who was involved in that accident who did not have any contract with the engineer can take the engineer to court.
The lecture is the 10th in the series. Adebola Brooksland Sunday, NTA News.
And that's the news on NTA International at this time. Many thanks for watching. I am Dennis Adegunloye. We'll leave you with this message.